astrologer in the world who can tell you what 15 years down the line is going to look like. In an ideal situation, you should not comment on these threes because nobody really can predict death. Disease should only be talked about when there is a disease. And the first D, which is divorce, again, it's free will. You can be in a difficult marriage and the choice to leave and be divorced is entirely up to you.
Most of us don't really want freedom. We want certainty. We want to be sure of what's going to happen, which is why astrology becomes so emotionally addictive.
The whole thing about astrology is going to predict your life to the T, in my opinion, does not exist. In the world of astrology, as a fun fact, social media is Rahu. Rahu is the illusion. What it gives you is, it'll give you fame. One of your reels has gone viral, now the world knows you. Wow.
Illusion of actually having an asset.
So you have nothing, and that's where all of your mental health issues also come from. So many stories are made around Mangal dosh, ye ho jayega hamare bete ko, and all of that, but doesn't exist. Suffering is a choice. Everyone is going to go through pain. Whether you want to make a suffering out of it or not is entirely up to you.
Lord Ram could have the perfect birth chart and live that difficult life. Then who are we to question ours?
It's like if you don't learn your lessons, then stop blaming planets. Like, I'm so tired of people blaming planets.
So Harshna, the more I observe people, the more I feel like most of us don't really actually want freedom. We want certainty. We want to be sure of what's going to happen. We don't like uncertainty. We don't like not knowing tomorrow, day after life, right? Which is why astrology becomes so emotionally addictive, because astrology promises you what's for tomorrow and day after. Can you throw a bit of light on that?
I mean, it's one thing to say that people want certainty, that's true. People also want permanence of everything. So if they have something in their life today, it's also about how can they make that stay forever. People don't like change in any form, right? And when it comes to certainty, honestly, everyone's trying to plan their life. There's a reason that we're all living with conditioning, right? This is what life should look like. Do this at this age, do this at that age. You should have a child at this point in your life. But nobody's life is really going to go as planned. And astrology also cannot give you that certainty because all it is going to give you is just help you understand your journey. The whole thing about astrology is going to predict your life to the T, in my opinion, does not exist because your life is still a function of your experiences, your conditioning, your free will, what you're able to do with what was dealt to you. And if you're not doing any of that, right, if you're not really putting in any work, there is no astrologer in the world who can tell you what 15 years down the line is going to look like. So really, this whole concept of certainty and permanence does not exist until and unless someone accepts that change is normal and
change is inevitable.
Inevitable. Because I always tell my clients actually that we are seeking permanence and certainty in a world that is inherently
changing all the time, by the minute. Yeah.
Everything is transient. The law of the universe is that everything is constantly moving.
Correct.
If there is anything in the world or the universe that has ever even stopped for a minute, the universe would not exist. If you see, like, the solar systems are moving, the earth is, moving, rotating, it's revoluting, it's still moving ahead. Like, the universes are, literally the galaxies
We are moving.
We are moving.
Today you're 25.
Yeah,
you're 25 plus 1, plus 2, plus 3. Everything is moving.
Everything is moving. The sun is going to rise, the sun is going to set. Like, it does not change. I mean, nothing stays the same. So, unless and until people become okay with change, they are going to, that's where suffering really comes from. So,
and that's where the attachment to astrology comes from. Because the belief is that it will give me permanence. It will give me a permanent solution or permanent answers to what life is going to turn out like.
Yeah, actually, at least in the first couple of years when I started doing astrology, I had a lot of people who would come with that expectation of like me giving them some solution to how things can remain permanent. But over the last 4 years, I think like, I'm pretty in my space, like not known for the opposite. Like I will never tell someone that this is exactly what is going to happen. I can give you a sense of what things are going to look like in terms of what can be dealt to you, right? Say, for example, at the moment you are really doing, maybe you're struggling with work a little bit. And I see that maybe 3 years down the line, work is going to improve or things are going to go a little bit more in your favor. That's how it works, right? Sometimes there's luck that plays in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't. You keep working really hard and
Yeah, it doesn't work out.
and it doesn't work out. But now either when it's not working hard, you decide to just not put in the work. Then maybe 3 years down the line, it's going to be like 5% different. Versus if you decide today that, okay, even if it's not working out, you work on your resilience, you work on you keep going, and
Yeah.
3 years later, you'll get the reward for it. But it doesn't mean that if today I put in no work and I say, listen, actually, you are saying 3 years later it's going to work, so I should stop doing anything today.
Yeah.
Like, I will never tell you that, look, just sit for 3 years,
Wait it out.
wait it out, don't do anything, and 3 years later, you're going to be a king.
Also, what about the compounding effect, right? Like, you have to keep putting in the work. It's like a step up, it's like the graph is like this. If you keep putting in the work, hence you reach here. It's not
Yeah.
like today and then suddenly I'll be there.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. You have to climb 100 steps to reach the top of a mountain. You can't climb 2 and be like, well, I should be near the top of the mountain now.
Yeah, so it'll give you a sense of, see, astrology can show you that the work that you're putting into will be rewarding in a certain period in your life. If you are, say, for example, in the journey of your life, there's going to be a certain period which you may feel a little bit more spiritually inclined as compared to where
Other
you're
years.
at right now. We all go through that those kind of changes,
Yeah.
right? You suddenly feel like you're more interested in a certain in a certain thing versus what you would be last year. Say, for example, you like playing paddle. You were maybe not as athletic a few years ago. So it's just certain periods in your life that make you more interested in
Inclined towards
you're
something.
inclined towards a certain different kind of thing that you may not normally be used to. So that's just kind of how it goes. So the astrology can tell you this is kind of what kind of journey that's coming for you. Say, for example, there is a tendency, it's more tendencies, right? There's a possibility, a tendency for you to maybe the tendency could be of like alcoholism, for example, that if you
You
don't,
could become an alcoholic.
that if it's not even about becoming an alcoholic, that you may not be able to control your drinks as compared to maybe where you're at right now. You may end up smoking more than you would like. And it's then becomes your job to not blame the planets and say, look, like Rahu is making me drink or Rahu is making me smoke. It's about then kind of really where do you bring the self-discipline, the self-control. So it still is in your hand. It's just a certain kind of energy can create a certain kind of tendency or a certain possibility. That is what astrology can help you understand. There's some things that can be that you may find is like good for you. It's favorable. Then you work with it. It's a potential that eventually can
You can
reward
tap
you.
into.
So you tap into that potential. There's certain things that there's always a downside, right?
Yeah.
That this is something that you should be mindful of. So, for example, something that I've been noticing a lot is that when somebody comes to me and asks me about health, if you're genuinely taking good care of your health, the chances of you falling sick are significantly
Low.
lesser. I'm not saying that you will never fall sick,
Yeah.
but it's the possibility of it if you're really putting in the work, taking care of the kind of food that you're eating, working out, looking after yourself, not just physically, also emotionally. The possibility of getting into something which is like in terms of illness is much lower. And if there is a period where a little bit of discomfort might come in through health, it could be like a viral versus something that is more intense.
But don't you feel like I'm the kind of person who wouldn't consult an astrologer, especially let's say it comes to health and things like that? It'll make you paranoid, firstly. Secondly, ups and downs are a part of life.
Yeah.
Whether it comes in form of health, finance, relationships, emotionally, spiritually, the 4 buckets of life.
Yeah.
Ups and downs are bound to happen.
Yeah.
That's where learning happens. That's where growth happens.
Yeah.
So if we feel like we don't want any of these aspects to be challenged, then you're not looking to grow in life.
Yeah.
But every time a challenge comes in any of these buckets, you will see yourself as a different person. You'll see a different version of yourself.
Yeah.
You'll see a grown version of yourself, from one of these things that went wrong. Now, if an astrologer tells me, firstly, I'm fretting about it way before time.
Yeah.
So, I'm supposed to take care of my health in September, for example, if an astrologer tells me it's May. I'm already stressing about September. What will happen in September? It could be, like you said, a viral. I'll start thinking cancer because human beings tend to think the worst.
Yeah.
And then maybe I am usually a very healthy person. I take care of my eating, my exercise, and all of that. I'll become so paranoid, I probably won't sleep well, I probably won't eat well until September, which will make me more sick than I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So, this is only my opinion, not saying is the right or the wrong way. But I feel like sometimes these predictions can cause paranoia, can cause you to overthink, can cause you to alter what may actually not happen.
So, in an ideal situation, astrologer should not comment on the 3Ds, which is divorce, disease, and death. Okay? So, somebody does come and ask me about health. My first question is, are you living a healthy lifestyle? And if they already have an existing health issue, and if there is an existing health issue, then you can, kind of, and in my practice at least, I will suggest to see like maybe someone who's practicing Ayurveda for just being able to eat more aligned with your body, which really helps with health. And if there's anything pressing in terms of health, so like I said, in an ideal situation, you should not comment on these threes because nobody really can predict death. Disease should only be talked about when there is a disease. And the first D, which is divorce, is again, it's free will. You can be in a difficult marriage and the choice to leave and be divorced is entirely up to you.
And no one should influence that.
Nobody should influence that. So many people come to me and ask me, like, do you think I should get divorced? I said, it's not my place to say whether you should get divorced or not,
Yeah.
I can only help you understand what you really want. I can take you through it. I can make you understand that what kind of influences are going on even in your own mind. So even astrology, for example, is really understanding people's psychology, right? It's like half the times I feel like I'm doing therapy because
I actually had this conversation in one of the astrologers I've had before where I said Indians prefer speaking to an astrologer, using them as a therapist instead of actually going to a therapist because they feel like you just tell me now my chart is good. You just tell me that everything will be fine. So basically it's like console me, hold me like a therapist would do and just mollycoddle me a little bit because I lack love in life and I lack certainty or some kind of confidence from my own surrounding. And instead of going to somebody and actually, confronting your own demons. So, by and large, I'm talking about, see, there's nothing wrong with astrology. Astrology is a science, right? And if you are a mentally sorted person, I would say, where you understand that how you are, how wrong and how right you are in your life, how your actions and reactions are, then astrology can be a great tool. It's like an enhancer.
Yeah.
But if you're using it as a crutch, then you're not doing yourself any favors. And what I think most people are doing is using it as a crutch. Like you said, my some star planet isn't working well. What can I do? I'm 10-2. I'm going to be an alcoholic or I'm going to be sick or I'm going to I'm not going to get married. It's not written in my charts. I'm going to get divorced. I have really bad chart, planets. So I just feel like it's used as an excuse instead of really facing the mirror and saying, what are you doing wrong in your life? What do you need to fix in yourself? I'm saying this is what people don't approach it as.
Yeah.
I normally hear people saying, it's not meant to be. I've got my chart read a few times. Nahi hai mere usme likha hua. Who has told you that? Everything is not likha hua. It's up to you, what you seek and how you're seeking it.
But Ashna, I also feel that's primarily because of the amount of misconception there is around astrology.
What is the biggest misconception about Vedic astrology? Explain to us what Vedic astrology is.
Okay, so in simpler terms, Vedic astrology helps you understand. Okay, it is believed that a soul has to wait for the planets and stars to be aligned with the karmas you accumulated across your previous lifetimes, which is basically a part of your karmas across your previous lifetimes is ready for fruition in this life, right? So that is called prarabdha karma. And when you're looking at a birth chart, you'll understand that these are the lessons that the soul has come here to learn or evolve through. And that is really just, really fundamentally speaking, what astrology is about. It's about being able to understand what kind of a journey is this soul here to take. Now, what kind of family you're born into? What kind of opportunities are you going to have? What kind of challenges you're going to face? We don't control that stuff, right? Who decides what family we're going to be born in? And that is literally your foundation.
Yeah,
Your
it's your starting point.
Your foundation of your life is based on what household you're born into, what all opportunities you're going to have growing up in that space, what kind of, whether comfortable, safe or unsafe space you brought up in.
All loving family,
Yeah.
unloving family, abusive, can be all those things as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that is, nobody chooses that. Like we're not born and then decide, okay, look, I don't like my family, let me go somewhere else. So that is your product. But now what you're able to do with all of your tendencies and patterns and conditioning that you receive through the first 20, 30 years of your life is, what you do with it is completely up to you. Like I always keep saying this to people, that your prarabdha karma is the most active in your first 15, 20 years, when you really are
Don't
not
have a choice.
you're not really in a place to do a lot of free will, right? You're a reflection of your family. Everything is a function of what you're being taught. Your right is according to your parents, your wrong is according to your parents, and they are literally your entire lens. And then by the time you turn 25, you're 30, at some point you start to really kind of find your own self. If you're lucky, sometimes you don't. And it's about really understanding your journey and understanding what are you here to do, because by that time all of your patterns are already there
In place.
in place. Your patterns are there, your tendencies are there. Now it's up to
personality.
you. Your personality is developed, your conditioning is already developed. You know how judgmental you are, you know how you look at the world, you know how much work you want to put in, you know whether you want to work at all or not. All of that is already established. Now either you want to use your free will to go beyond it, or you can live with your default setting also. It's not like, if somebody says, like you said, that you've come across people who just keep blaming astrology, and they really would also believe that everything happens as per astrology, is because they don't use any free will. So astrology is like your base. This is your default setting that you're born with. Now, if you put in no work, your life is actually going to
Exactly stay like that.
play out exactly like that. And you will think that there is nothing more real than astrology, because you have crutched to it as if this is 100% of your life.
What about all the programming you can add to that default, all the effort you can put in, and then things change?
So I keep telling people also is that if everything was destiny, then we would not be here. Where is the future? There's something called as agami karma or kriyamana karma, which is the karma you accumulate as you go along. And all of that karma is actually accumulated through our responses, how we react, through our triggers, through our patterns. Now, are we going to break through a pattern? Are we going to keep enduring that pattern? Are we going to stay in it forever? That's up to you. So, kriyamana karma and agami karma is essentially free will. Okay, so for example, the easiest example is a toxic relationship. And especially because nowadays you see a lot of them, right? You meet someone, you know that initially it's very nice, and then maybe a month, 2 months down the line, it gets very toxic. Now, when we're in a toxic relationship, everyone knows they're in a toxic relationship.
I'm sure. I mean, you would know
knows.
it. Yeah.
You know it. Like, you know, you're being all of those situationship and etc. versions that I don't really know, but everyone knows they're in it, right? Everyone has that inner voice at that point in time that get out.
This is not right for you.
This is not right for you. You know it. Even you might have been in relationships in your life where you had better knowing that this is not good for you, but you still stayed.
Yeah.
Okay? That is free will. You staying because you don't have the courage to leave is up to you. And being in any sort of situation like that in your life, staying in a situation where you know you shouldn't be here, out of comfort, out of conditioning, out of
lack of courage.
And mostly it's lack of courage, right? Lack of courage, that's all free will. You're not making a different choice.
Hence that.
And hence that pattern is not going to break. Hence that agami karma that you're accumulating is really not getting you anywhere. It's like you're still operating from your prarabdha. You're still in that same pattern, same loop, same tendency. So you're going to be born with the same pattern, same tendency in another lifetime. The point is that
No lesson learned.
no lesson learned. So now you keep going around in the same loop. It's like how in a game, right? If you don't cross that level, you just have to start again.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's a good way of explaining it. You play Tetris, you're on level 20, you don't cross it, you don't make it to
Yeah.
21, you're stuck in 20.
yeah. So
And then what if you decide, you know what, my skill is only up to 20, I'm not going to bother with 20, or you shut the game.
Yeah.
You never made it to 21.
yeah,
And then you blame astrology, for example.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So life is like a game only. That's what it's called. It's literally
Yeah.
like we're inherently in this game, and now every lifetime is sort of like a level, and now we're here to go through certain kind of challenges, evolve through them, learn through them,
Move to the next
move
level.
to the next level. But most of us don't move to the next level because of your prarabdha. Your prarabdha is the hand that you're dealt, which is your family, which is your circumstances. Now, either you keep becoming a victim to all of that, or you say, listen, actually, okay, I've got this is fine. You have acceptance, you have forgiveness. That's where you do the inner work, right?
Yeah.
And then you move on to the next level.
So Vedic astrology is called Jyotish, the science of light. And I think people who come to you or who go to an astrologer aren't obviously operating from a space of light. They are usually standing in a lot of darkness. What does it feel like to hold someone's chart and see right on the paper the exact shape of their suffering?
So, on a piece of paper, you can't see suffering. And the reason for that is you can only see pain. Suffering is a choice, right? Everyone is going to go through pain. Whether you want to make a suffering out of it or
Not.
is entirely up to you. So, over the years, actually, I've seen so many people who've stayed in that suffering for so long that they don't even realize it's pain anymore. They don't even realize it's suffering anymore. They're like, this is, in fact, they get defensive of it now. You know, they're like,
This is my identity.
this is who I am.
Yeah.
yeah, it becomes their identity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people are really graceful, right? And so my job is to honestly not take any of it like personally. It's to kind of just show them what it is. I, in fact, after reading, tell them like, I hope you don't need me again. Because I can show you, I can tell you things for what they are, that you are making a suffering out of something that is not suffering. And Ashna, I've seen people make suffering out of like ridiculous things, and not in like a judgmental way, but as human beings, we can create suffering out of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
We
I
can,
think out of nothing even.
and out of nothing is
Yeah.
was what I was saying. Literally, we like to stay in suffering. So, for example, now I can have everything going well for me in my life, and I may not have a boyfriend. And what I'll do is not look at all of the other stuff that is working for me. And maybe at this point in life, what you really meant to focus on is work. But now you will not look at work because you're like, don't care. You know, tell me about the boyfriend.
Yeah.
And if I tell them, okay, look, you know what, I really think that this period in your life, you should be focusing more on work because that's what the universe is ready to give you right now, right?
Yeah. The abundance is coming
The
from there.
abundance is coming from there. At every given point in time, everything is not going to be perfect. There's always going to be something that is looking better than the other. So our duty really to our higher self is to focus on the stuff that is going for you. How do you give your 100% in the stuff that is working out for you?
But I'm
versus-
sure that person gets stuck on the fact that, no, but tell me, when will the
yeah,
boyfriend come
but
in?
tell me, where is the boyfriend going to come from? And I'm like, I really truly, like at that point, I have to be like, look, I don't see it coming right now. However, like I would recommend that like you still keep going on dates if that's what you really want, right?
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe you meet someone now and something happens maybe a year later.
Yeah.
But don't like lose hope because now,
You have said.
yeah, because I've said like I don't really see like love coming into your life over the next 6 months or whatever. And I also think marriage in general is a fairly tricky thing because marriages happen really out of nowhere. You know, you'll meet someone and like you're getting married in 2 months.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, genuinely speaking, marriage is one thing that I've seen that it really does happen when it's meant to happen. Because a person can come out of and especially stories around marriage, is that you never saw it coming. It's like you meet someone and you're just like, dude, I don't know how it happened. So, I mean, just leave it be. Like, especially things around marriage, I feel like one just needs to really go with the flow. And I think in recent past, I've not really received a lot of, I've not really had too many clients who've come to me and asked me about
Getting
marriage.
married.
Yeah. I think surprisingly over the last couple of years, I've had a lot more people just ask about like, what's my purpose? Or like, can you help me just look at my life a little bit?
You're meeting the right kind of people for
Yeah.
sure. But I don't feel like the general crowd is consulting astrology for those things. Like, if you go on a Reddit link and you see what kind of questions people ask, it's actually insane. Like you said, the tendency of making nothing a problem and focusing on only that one dot in your life that may not have worked out how you wanted, and everything else is like sunny, bright, and rainbows. But you're focused on that one thorn. It's like it
Yeah.
really is life. I mean, I'm glad that you have
But it's like
the clientele who's asking you about purpose. I don't see that. I see very few people actually questioning their purpose. The amount of people I interact with, and it's about the smallest suffering and the focus on that smallest suffering.
Yeah, so, it's like how you said, what you put out in the universe is kind of what you get back, right?
Yeah. I believe that very strongly.
Yeah.
Is who you are is what your life is.
So, because I am inherently the kind of person that looks at life like that. It's all about like, it's always been about growth. It's about like, even if something comes, how do you get better? You're looking, literally facing the patterns. You're literally looking at even your own suffering. Your suffering in any form is going to come from something that has happened to you in the past. Even validation. All of those things are coming from somewhere your prarabdha or something that you were dealt or you went through when you were younger. So you look at it, you accept it, you move on, you let it go. So I've always lived life like that. So for me, I only know how to even show light through that,
Yeah.
So
Fair.
that's the reason that people that come to me are also honestly like that now. Like I don't really have clients, at least over the last, like I said, last 2-3 years, who come to me for those questions, because I'm really not giving them the validation that they would like,
Yeah.
And I don't have this come back to me every 1 month and I'm gonna
Change
give
your
you-
life.
Yeah, I don't have that. For me, it's very like, this is kind of where you're at, and I don't think you really need to see me for another year. And maybe if you have something urgent that you want to run by me, obviously people keep going through certain kinds of crisis and they
Correct.
just want someone to hear them out. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to like, again, I'm not going to change anything. I can just be someone that helps you kind of understand, okay, look, it's fine. Sometimes sometimes kind of take them through it astrologically, and sometimes it's not even that. Like I really feel like I'm doing the job of a therapist, but the difference is that they don't have to tell me what they're going through. So the good side of being able to do this from that kind of lens is that when I get on a call and if I look at their birth chart and if I'm able to see whatever is going on, I already know how you're feeling. So
Interesting.
So it's kind of like now, at least they feel a little bit more seen and heard. That's all that it is.
Yeah. So, Harshna, I read that Jyotish is a limb of the Vedas. Can you explain what that means?
So what are the Vedas? Vedas are ancient Vedic scriptures which essentially talk about the essence of life, the essence of reality, who we are, what we are, etc. Now, all of Vedas talk about one foundational truth, that every soul emerges from a higher soul or the divine, which is called Brahman. And it is one source, which is called non-duality, Advait. And then it gets split into all of these different souls that we hear, Atman. And eventually the journey is back to the higher source.
So, from Atman to Brahman.
So you go from Brahman to Atman. So it's like, that's your ultimate truth. That's your non-duality. That is where Advaita is, which is everything is one. It goes from one to many and then many back to one. Got it? Now, when it goes from one to many is literally the journey of karma. So in the Vedas, it says the unmanifest becomes manifest, which is a physical manifestation. And eventually, like all of us, we want to eventually go back home, right? Even after we go on a holiday, we want to go home.
Yeah, we go to
So
work,
the
we go
soul is
anywhere.
like anywhere we go, no matter how amazing it's been, we crave to just go home. So the soul takes birth only because it wants to get back to the higher self, because that's the home for the soul, right? So why does it have to put us through all of these lessons? Why does it have to put us through all of this
Suffering, pain, life.
etc., etc.? Is because, listen, let's get through the process of evolution really quickly, and I just want to go back and merge with the source. Why is astrology a Vedanga, which is the limb of the Vedas? Is because it's supposed to help you on that journey. Does that make sense? If the Vedas are about merging back with the source, these are things that will help you on your journey, which is why it becomes a limb. A limb helps you walk, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I expedite that journey of the soul? Is that Jyotish, which is the science of light, is that it will guide you. It's like how in darkness, even one matchstick is enough to show you light. That is what astrology is actually meant to do to you. Now, astrology and Jyotish comes from something called as the Hora Shastra. Hora Shastra, when it was written thousands of years ago, was written by Maharishi Parashar. Now, Maharishi Parashar never spoke of any remedies, because remedies inherently go against what was written in the Vedas, which is to return to the source. If you could manipulate the universe, and if you could take away all of your pain through just doing something, then this whole point of the Vedas is
Pointless.
The journey of the soul is to go back to the source through the process of evolution. So where does remedies come in? Astrology is about 10,000 years old, around that, okay? Or the Vedas are around 10,000 years old. And remedies are 200 years old. Nothing. They don't exist in the entire timeline. They're so recent because humans were so focused on trying to change things externally, because we don't want to put in the work. What does going through the process of evolution takes? Courage. We don't have that. We want the easier way out. So what did astrologers start doing? So something very simple. Have you heard of Rahu?
Yeah.
Okay, now Rahu is a shadow. It's like in the 9 planets, you see the 7 exist tangibly. Rahu and Ketu are the nodes of the moon. North node is Rahu, south node is Ketu. They don't really exist in a tangible body. Now Rahu kind of governs the head, everything to do with your mind, thinking, thoughts, addictions, fame, success, things that you can't really touch and feel. So what astrologers are telling people is that go on a chauraha, which is, you know what a chauraha is? Chauraha is where the 4 roads
merge. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
A 4-way.
Like a 4-way is a chauraha, right? So they say go and light a lamp in a chauraha. Now people, what they're doing is they're physically going and lighting a lamp in the chauraha. What it really just means is that whenever you're under the influence of Rahu, because it's not tangible, it's intangible, it creates stress, anxiety, overthinking, scenario building, so on and so forth, you're not really able to see things for what they are.
You know, you have no clarity
You
left.
don't have clarity. So what it really was supposed to be about is to light that lamp inside of your mind to see in all directions before you move forward, versus getting carried away in one direction. So for example, in my experience, if somebody's really under the influence of Rahu, they only look at things 2 ways, which is one, which is extreme good or extreme bad.
So either something will go really wrong with me, or
Yeah.
everything is going to work out with me, where you're also like kind of in la la land.
Yeah, but that kind of la la land in terms of businesses is taking on debt you can't manage.
Yeah, exactly.
For example,
yeah.
right? And then your company goes bust. Versus like being so afraid to take on a loan because you feel like if you take on 1 rupee loan, you'll not be able to pay it back.
Yeah.
So it's really being able to...
Extreme.
Yeah, it's always on 2 ends of the spectrum. So what does Rahu, what do you really do is ground yourself in the present moment and operate from there. So so in my case, what I would say is like make sure that if you are not able to ground yourself, grounding is through meditation. Grounding is through any form of dhyan, focus, kind of building your concentration and things like that.
And being very mindful that your mind is being a monkey.
Yeah, exactly. And being so that's where mindfulness comes in, right? And the only antidote really to Rahu is mindfulness. Or you really have someone around you who grounds you. So if you're operating from this or that, somebody can kind of bring you back, which is called like a sthir state, which is
But you're right. Most people will go and light the diya on the charaha
Yeah.
instead of here.
Yeah. So it's really about understanding, even with the remedies that exist today, is like, what does it really mean for you? Because nothing is external. In all of Jyotish, in all of the Vedas, there is no form of externality. Everything needs to be done by you because it's the journey of the soul, and the soul needs to go back home, and that's all that it is. So if you're able to understand that, you will stop trying to manipulate the universe. You think that Saturn as an energy exists, like this is how I actually even got into astrology, is that I used to be like, how can these planets millions of miles away have any impact on us, right? That's a bit crazy.
Correct.
But all of these planets are energies that exist within us and manifest through us. So for example, Saturn would represent how disciplined you are, how structured you are, how
What is Saturn called? In
Shani.
Okay.
How much humility do you have? How much humanity do you have? How basically it's about eventually becoming a good human being. That's also why there's a lot of people really have this idea of Saturn, that Saturn's really bad, but actually just wants to bring you back to the ground. For example, Shani, which is Saturn. Now Shani is a planet that governs discipline, structure, humanity, humility, grounding, and a lot of that tends to happen through some form of pain, right?
Only when we suffer, we grow.
Yeah, only when we suffer, we grow. Like if you're someone who's very, very arrogant and you don't really treat people well, Saturn or Shani is like, listen, let's bring you back to the ground. So
Yeah.
there'll be some form of pain that will come into your life. The idea for that pain is actually to bring you back to the ground and make you realize, look, everyone is eventually the same. Everyone's the same, going through different journeys, and that's all that really it wants you to understand.
Correct.
But obviously, we don't really look at it like that. What we'll do is we'll go and chadao tel on Saturday because that's a way of appeasing Shanidev. But again, that's because we as humans don't want to put in the work, unfortunately. So I always tell people that you want a different result, take a different action. Change the way you live your life every day. Stop reading horoscopes every day. Stop going and doing a new remedy every day. Look at how you're operating from the present moment. So, another interesting fact is that seva is considered a really big way of, like, in general, creating good karma. So, but seva cannot happen if you're doing it with the intent of greed. So, in fact, the Vedas have been very clear when they stated that if you want to do seva, if there is even one little bit of like feeling of this is going to
Benefit me in this way.
me in any way,
Yeah.
then there is no greater sin. So, if now you're actually going and doing a remedy, and by remedy I mean if you're going and feeding the poor on a Saturday, they're poor people every day, right? It's not like suddenly people become poor on Saturdays.
It's true.
Now, why are you going and feeding the poor on Saturdays? Because you think you're going to appease Shanidev. I mean, come on. Like, your intent inherently is that we're going to appease Saturn or Shani and get something in return.
Yeah.
That's greedy. That's
And transactional in your head.
transactional.
Yeah.
So, that is not something that works. Seva is seva. Seva is like how if you've been to a Gurudwara, there are people who are standing there in a line and like feeding the
Day
whole
after
day.
day.
That is seva. It doesn't matter if it's hot, cold. There are people who are doing seva in the, the shoes. That is seva. You want to really do seva, people, what they'll do is, somebody has told, an astrologer has told them to go and do dan, rice lekar aao, 10 kilos you put it, and then the whole family will come and touch it. They will not even go and give the rice themselves. What have they done? They've paid for the rice, they've touched the rice, and now suddenly all of your
Problems
are going to go away. I mean, it doesn't work like that. They say that, okay, somebody in my family is not doing well. Most people have a problem with their sons, to be honest. Because beti ki shaadi jati hai. So they're like, now they've gone, she's gone to another house. Beta is like, there was, the hope was from the beta, right? Now, if the beta is not turning out the way that they would have liked, means now every remedy needs to be done for the son because this was their light of the family. But actually, nobody can do anything to change someone else's life.
Correct.
You
Everyone's
cannot
come on
do
their own
anything.
journey.
Yeah. If the change has to come, it has to come
From the sun.
from the sun. Actually, like I've had so many clients whose sons are genuinely, like the betas are totally not interested in life, you know. And the mothers especially, because there's so much concern, are just like, you tell me anything. You tell me any puja in any part of the world, I
And
will
any
get
daan.
it done. Any daan, I will do. And they're so disappointed to hear. Like I said, I'm really kind of not in that space of telling them that your life is going to change, or your son's life is going to change like this. So there's so much disappointment that like, मैं कर लूँ जपा, मैं साधना कर लेती हूँ, मैं जपा कर लेती हूँ, मैं दान कर लेती हूँ, but
You can't satisfy
someone
someone's
else's
hunger by eating.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So if
Yeah.
you don't put in the work, then there is nothing in the world that is going to change a thing.
So tell me, karma has been also like flattened into this one meme, what goes around comes around, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's summed up by the common man that it's as simple as what goes around comes around. But I think karma is deeper than that, according to Vedic astrology, as far as I read up before this show. And what's the most profound misunderstanding, according to you, of karma that you see people carry?
Endurance. The most common misunderstanding of karma is that you can endure through a lesson. So people will stay in a situation thinking that now it's my job to stay in this situation for the rest of my life, especially like marriages, right? It can be miserable, it can be toxic, it can be
Abusive.
And you think that staying in that marriage is going to cut your karma is, I don't understand it, because it does not exist. You can only break that.
Learn, evolve.
Learn and evolve. Either you have so much acceptance that you hold nothing against them, then you should not be coming to me.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, right? Or you have the courage to say, listen, this is it. I'm not going to do this anymore. And you really have the energy to, or the courage to walk away. You cannot say it's my life's duty, because
To
that's
suffer with this.
escapism. Yeah, that's escapism. I mean, people use escapism. They don't want to say escapism because they get very defensive. You know, it's again, like I said earlier, it becomes their identity.
It does. Because, you know, the mind craves comfort, and sometimes that pain becomes comfort, and then you don't know how to identify yourself besides that. Like, I always see this happening very often. The main bichari or
Yeah.
main bichara syndrome
मेरे
is...
पास कोई option नहीं था.
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice. You
Yeah.
know, that I didn't have a choice, I don't have a choice, I will never have a choice, and you keep justifying
Everything in your life.
everything in your life, and you feel like मेरी तो जिंदगी यही है. मतलब I was only born for this suffering. Nobody is born for suffering. Nobody in this world is born to suffer. If you learn the lesson, if you get over it, there's something maybe really incredible in store for you. But the thing is,
You can't be stuck in there.
you cannot, if you're going to be stuck in there. Like, funny thing, you know, I've had so many people that have come to me over the course of my career in a miserable marriage right now, ready to get divorced. When will I find my next partner? I'm like, come on, man, like, get at least, you know,
Get out of this
get
first.
out first. And this is like, we will make our decision on whether we should get divorced or not based on whether we will find someone or not and when we will find. So if you say we're going to find someone in 3 years and I'll walk out in 2 years, I'm like, that is absurdity. You know, for me, I'm just like, that makes no sense. Because why does that happen is because there is so much fear.
Of being alone.
So much fear of being alone is that you're okay to stay in the known misery
Yeah.
than the unknown, even if it's good, which is what we were talking about, which is certainty. So this whole idea of like endurance is going to, you know, is going to take away your karma. You're failing this level and you're going to come back with the same situation until you make a different choice.
And not only that, like, I would actually question this in a very different way. I would ask the person, you are talking about seeking a new partner while you're in a toxic marriage that you're looking to walk out of.
Yeah.
Don't you want to first heal from that?
Yeah.
Sit down for 6 months and work out where did you mess up? Forget what the other person did. That's their journey.
Yeah.
Where did you mess up?
Yeah.
What do you need to correct in yourself? Wherever you toxic, because it takes two.
Obviously.
It takes two to tango. It's like the oldest saying in the book.
Yeah.
You know, nothing happens one way.
Correct.
It's a two-way story. Don't you want to sit down and process why everything went, so bad? Why did everything blow up in your face? Where did you mess up? Where did you go wrong? What do you need to change about yourself? And what are you seeking? It obviously didn't work out because you were not happy.
Yeah.
What do you actually want then?
Yeah.
And then that whole space and time to work out what you need for your soul, for your mind, for your emotions, for your heart, to work it out for the next one. To be asking an astrologer, what can I walk into after this? It's like you don't even want to see if your wounds have healed and you're like, hold on, let me get battered
Go
again.
into the next thing. Yeah, but that's kind of what I say, right? What you've said is exactly what I tell these people. I'm like, first you go through the process, then you go through the process of grief. It's important to even grieve the relationship that
Correct.
you've invested so much in, heal from it, understand what it is that you want, what it is that you don't want.
Yeah.
And then when you have, I'm not saying you need to have everything figured out. Nobody has everything
But some
figured out.
clarity.
But some form of even, are you still operating from fear? And even something like, did you first get married because there was that fear of being alone? And are you again going to do the same thing? Because that pattern can then again keep going on forever, right?
Yeah.
That first time you decided to get married because you're going to be alone, so let's just do it.
You know, I'm going
And then do it again.
I'm going to ask you a very funny question. I know of somebody who's now like third time divorced.
Yeah.
Okay. And help me out on this, because everybody has turned around and kind of made fun of the fact that, you know how like in our Indian culture, we consult patris,
Yeah.
right? And it's horoscope matching.
Yeah.
So do the horoscopes sit well together for two people to be together? So everybody is laughing and now joking about the fact that who's matching this girl or this boy's horoscope that they've got it wrong 3 times. And I'm sat there thinking, what about the fact that he or she has not made the effort to change the toxicity in their life to repeat 3 times? But everyone is, believe me, society just laughs about the fact that, is the horoscope not being matched right? How is this happening third time to this person? But it's maybe not the horoscope, maybe it's the person.
So what is horoscope matching? Did not exist. Again, so astrology, like I said, beginning in the Hora Shastra, all of these things that we know of astrology were not there. This all started when arranged marriages started because there was no communication between two people, right? Have you ever heard that like when it's a love marriage, you should not match horoscopes?
No, I don't know.
Maybe 100, 200 years ago, nobody was going and meeting, now going, for parties together and going on date nights and stuff, right? So they were like, okay, how do we see basic compatibility? So they created these guidelines, sort of, right? Which is different levels of compatibility based on a horoscope, which was there. Nothing ever says that if you match a horoscope, the marriage is not going to fail. Because like I said, if you're making the same mistake over and over again, it is going to repeat. You can get a certain understanding that maybe these two people will get along, but actually in what I've understood is what is more important is, are you in the right headspace when you're getting married? So I would always say, don't get married when you're under the influence of Rahu, because Rahu tends to create a lot of fear. So that fear will tell you, no, you're not going to find someone else, get married to this one. Or you will not see things for what they are. So now everyone around you is telling you this person is not good for you, but you are like, you know what, rose-colored glasses. And you will see what is good in them.
Yeah, like you said, clarity is
lacking. So instead of doing Kundli matching, one really needs to see what dasha one is in. Dasha is basically, there's a wheel of time, which is 120 years in astrology, which is like your planetary periods. Have you heard the word dasha before?
Yeah.
Okay, so that 120-year wheel of time is depends on when you are born. And from there on, your life is going to unfold in a specific order. So whichever dasha you're on, if you're under the influence of Rahu, you should ideally not make any big decisions because you're not making it out of clarity. Some people, if they're really into inner work, sadhana, they're doing their meditation and they operate from clarity, no problem. But if you're someone that is inherently unclear, at that point in time, there's no point in making a rushed decision. So Kundli matching is by no means and standard a benchmark, especially in today's time in age where two people are actually spending time before getting married.
Yeah, unlike
the
traditionally where
traditionally
nobody.
when they were not, and honestly, traditionally what they cared about is like the gene pool or like, you know,
Family backgrounds
family
matching.
backgrounds matching, or
Socioeconomic.
even from an astrological perspective, like will they be able to have babies? That actually has the most number of points as well, is that this, like, basically the kind of compatibility may not even be important to us anymore. It's the stuff that goes into matching of kundalis. So you don't really need to, in my opinion, I don't match kundalis. So for me, it's like, okay, I will see if the two periods in their lives are aligning, and if they want to get married, great. If they don't want to get married, then I don't think anybody should be forced, because like your kundali is matching and now two people don't want to get married, but let's get married because this is going to be amazing. Okay. And for example, something like Mangal Dosh, right? Have you heard of Manglik?
Yeah.
A lot of women keep getting rejected based on this girl as Manglik. Now, what is Manglik? Manglik is the 7th house in astrology, is the house of marriage. Now, if there is an influence of Mars in the girl's chart, that means that she is going to have a personality of her own, which traditionally is a bad thing in India, right? That this girl should come in. What are we taught? Societally taught. The girl is meant to sacrifice. The girl is meant to now go and ghul milo into the family, as though like she's come from no conditioning, no experiences, no likes, dislikes of her own.
Adjust blindly.
Adjust. So that is the narrative that has been taught has been at some level been taught to every woman, right?
Correct.
That you have to sacrifice. So the minute an astrologer will see some influence of Mars on the 7th house or Mangal on the 7th house, means
she has a brain of her own.
She has a brain of her own. So this is automatically rejected.
Danger.
Danger, and that is only because Mangal is fiery and it will stand up for what it believes in. So it's putting up a fight. So they will say Manglik ki Manglik se shaadi honi chahiye, because the man is also now aggressive. So now he can handle someone who's a strong-minded girl. But if the guy is not strong-minded, means now he's going to get very influenced by the woman, and that is going to take away our control sort of over the sun, right? Because families want their control over the sun. So Manglik is automatically then rejected, and then obviously so many stories are made around Mangal Dosh, ye ho jayega hamare bete ko, and all of that, but
actually doesn't exist.
Actually, no. Doesn't exist.
So Western astrology gives people a sun sign.
Yeah.
And sends them on their way. And I think Vedic astrology is all about moon signs, nakshatra, and the inner architecture. But I still see the common man or common woman believe in star signs, sun sign. I'm an Aries, I'm a Pisces, I'm a Cancer. We all talk about it very casually. In newspaper every day, there's horoscopes. Can you throw a little bit of light on that? And I want the Vedic lens on this.
The Vedic lens, if anyone's ever even seen my Instagram, is there's a reason there is no astrology bit on it. Which is like, if you're an Aries rising, if you're a Mars, if you're a Taurus rising, if you're a Gemini rising, or for this sun sign and that moon sign, is because it cannot be generalized. There are 8 billion human beings on this planet. You cannot bucket them into 12 anything.
That's true.
Whether it's 12 moon sign, 12 sun signs,
12 personalities.
Personalities. I mean, otherwise we would all be fairly identical, which we're not. If you pick up any two people and you see their trajectories of their life, even people who are born very close to each other's time of birth, even date of birth, time of birth, place of birth, you'll still find their lives are very different. So in an ideal sense, I would suggest to not look at anything, because none of it is really going to hold true. What it's going to do is, it's going to make you believe in something that doesn't exist.
But why is there so much marketing around it? Like, it comes in everyday newspaper, comes in every magazine at the back on the last 2 pages or something. It's there on everyone's Instagram. Your Aries today, your moon today, your this today, your that today. Every website sells this concept. Why do you think that as humans, we love to attach ourselves to this? We are all ready to define 7 to 8 billion people in 12 personalities.
So first of all, sun signs vary from Western astrology to Vedic astrology. Now, what is a sun sign? Is where your sun was at the time that you were born. Essentially, that's what it is, right? In the world or in the universe. For example, as of right now, everything is moving, correct? So from Earth, sun is going to be somewhere in the 12 zodiacs.
Yeah.
So
The
it will-
position of it.
the position of it will fall somewhere from Earth, right? That becomes your sun sign.
So that is, for the moment is in May.
Yeah.
Let's say today somebody is born.
So today somebody is born is in Taurus, for example. But about a few hundred years ago, the sun, every few years, the sun's axis moves by few, every year it moves a little bit, like very minutely. But it compounds, right, over the years. Now, a few hundred years ago, the sun was aligned to 23rd of one month to the next. It would be in one zodiac. But now the Earth's
Axis.
it's the wobble basically of the axis, and that entire mathematics shifts. So at this point in time, the zodiacs don't move on the 23rd. They move on the 15th of the next month. So for example, somebody traditionally would think 23rd of April to 23rd of May is Taurus, but actually Taurus would be in the Vedic lens, which is as of today the placement of
The planets.
the planets and the way that the sun and the earth are aligned. It would actually happen on the 15th of same May. It would enter 15th, 16th of May, it would enter into Taurus, and it would be in Taurus till about 15th of June. So it will actually enter Taurus about 20 days after it is, we presume.
Meant to be.
Yeah. So now you are looking at the sky as a sun sign from Western astrology, because that has not really changed anything. Vedic astrology looks at the
Today.
exact position of stars right now. So if you look at your Vedic chart, it will tell you, listen, you were at this much degrees into Taurus, for example. Your sun is exactly at this position at this.
Correct.
Versus Western astrology, we're just still looking at a timeline which was a few
500
hundred years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So which is why now you may be a Pisces, for example, but what date are you born on?
27th Feb.
27th Feb. Yeah, so your sign would have not changed. According to Vedic astrology, you would still be an Aquarius versus, are you very disciplined?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is like an Aquarian trait versus a Pisces trait. Pisces traits are like, okay, we're very, in general, like just a basic personality would be they're very intuitive, very, go with the flow, very surrendered. But
I don't go with any of them.
Aquarians are like, listen, I need to plan like everything down to the T. Like it's like borderline between discipline, structure and control. It's like, where do you draw the line, right?
Correct.
So that's what an Aquarius is, but they're also big humanitarians. So you'll always want to do good to people. Try and think beyond you, basically, for like the greater good. So obviously these lines, Vedic astrology will show you that, and Western astrology will try and tell you, listen, you must be very intuitive, and you're like, not quite sure about that.
Crazy, because I think, like you said, the conditioning and the marketing is so strong that we all just automatically believe it. We still talk about it. What star sign are you? What star sign are you? Oh, you're this personality, of course. You're this personality, of course. And then we start seeing those people from that lens even. I have seen people asking you and then kind of seeing you from that lens when it has nothing to do with your personality.
Yeah.
But that lens changes because you have set a certain sun sign, and like you explained really well, that star sign is also not accurate anymore.
Yeah, it's not. So, for example, when I started doing astrology, like even wanted to build like a social media, etc., was the whole thought process. It took me a long time to even get on social media, because I was like, I don't want to talk about astrology because I can't generalize it. I can't start talking about for Scorpio ascendants 2026 is going to look like that. And the amount of work I've turned down with like people who want to do this, or like somebody will say, can you write for us every month? I'm like, I cannot, because it's like making a fool out of someone. Like somebody's actually reading it, thinking that something is going to happen in their life, and
they'll start implying it also.
Yeah. So I was like, I feel like that's inherently not right in at least the way that I look at life, it's not right. So why is all my entire social media rooted in Vedanta is because Vedanta is the bit which shows you how do you navigate through your issues. So if life throws you something, what do you make of it?
Yeah.
So astrology is like, okay, it's going to give you a certain kind of situations in your life, which obviously all of us know we can't control, right?
Correct.
That's how life is. There is a part of it that is in our control, and there's a big part of it which is not in our control, and that is your prarabdha. Now, what you make of it is what Vedanta will teach you, or like, so everything is actually written in the Vedas. It's the light of Jyotish is also there to understand your journey. How do you navigate through it? How do you go above it, beyond it? How do you see equality in all beings? I mean, that's what the entire essence of the Vedas is, which is completely lost.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Vedas are, so deep rooted and so deep in explaining everything. And astrology is like a speck of it. And then people get hung up on that speck. It's like, what about the rest?
So another interesting thing that I mean, I love talking about it on at least whenever I have an opportunity is that quantum physics. You know what quantum physics is?
Yes, of course.
Quantum physicists, like especially the founding scientists, there are these very famous scientists like Niels Bohr, Erwin Schrödinger, Werner Heisenberg, that actually studied the Vedas. Some of them learnt Sanskrit to read the Vedas and to read Vedanta. And I think it was Schrödinger who used to finish, like he used to end his lecture saying Atman is equal to Brahman, which is that the ultimate, like the source is equal to each one of the souls, and the soul eventually goes back and merges with the source. And we have completely lost sight of that, and we use astrology as the opposite of what the Vedas have kind of told us. So when I started studying astrology, and everyone would be like, why don't you go and learn from this person? I was like, learn what? Like, they're going to tell me, how do you play further into Maya? Like, Maya is this, the entire external world that we live in. The entire illusion of reality is what Maya is essentially, right? The whole point is to transcend it. The whole point is to look beyond it. And what do? We go right into it and say, hey, let's do one more ritual. The whole point is to not get carried away by all of these different experiences in our life, everything that is dealt to us. And what really Maya is actually everything. When we are born, it's not like desire is Maya or attachment is Maya or wanting more is Maya or material world is Maya. Everything, the minute that we are born and we come into this world, the entire existence is Maya.
Yeah, it's like that matrix, right?
It's the entire matrix is Maya.
Yeah.
So how do you look beyond that matrix? Is you go back to astrology, you go back to the Vedas, they will tell you, listen, the more you look outward, you're going to get lost. You have to look within, go on that journey within, and then be able to transcend this entire...
It's like rise above what you see. Yeah.
So as an astrologer, actually speaking, my job is to help people not look at their birth chart. Like, the aim is that you should rise above your birth chart, that your birth chart should not affect you anymore. Like, for someone like me, I'm an astrologer, I don't need to look at my birth chart anymore, because the point is to not have to go back and looking at it. How do you use that information to go beyond it?
Correct.
It's like, how do you rise above your karma? How do you rise above your patterns? How do you rise above your conditioning? That is the whole point. And the more we keep getting stuck into it, that's just us going back and getting sucked into the world of Maya. Ashna, it's a business.
It's become one.
It has become one it's been a long time since it's become one, right? So now they are coming from survival. They're not coming from the greater good. Like, I didn't get into this because I needed a roof over my head or I needed to put food on the table. Now somebody else is coming from that survival need. Now they're not looking at you as somebody whose life needs to be changed through you. They're looking at you as
business.
A commodity,
a
transaction. That, listen, how do I make this person come back? Otherwise, this was a dying business. You're like, okay, you come to me and you tell me everything, then why the hell will I go back to you? I need you to give me a solution that I can keep coming back. So then that's kind of how it became a thing.
That's what I'm saying, it became a subscription.
It's a subscription. So versus, like, if somebody will ask me, why do you charge this? I don't want you to come back. You would be okay to pay this in 10 sittings, right? And I can make you keep coming back to me every 2 weeks. You'll have no problem.
Correct.
Versus like paying it at one time, because I actually don't want to see my clients
over and over
again, because I don't have anything new to say.
Yeah.
Unless you've gone and done something and done the work, and now you're at a space where you feel like you need a little bit more
push to go
to the next level from like, how can you do something different?
Yeah.
I'm very happy to help. But if you're going to keep going and asking me about the same boy, you're going to keep asking me about the same situation you've been in, and you don't really seem to be making
a difference in your own life.
Yeah. Then then don't, I mean,
And
it's
nothing
like
will change.
pointless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I'm just like, there's really like no point. Sometimes I actually tell my clients that if you are in a desperate space, right, where you feel like you need to talk to me today, I cannot talk to you. That means it's not coming from you having actually spent time thinking about something and really like sitting with it. It's just like, there's nothing so urgent in life that needs an answer like in this present moment.
There are also some sentences which I hear people very casually throwing around. So throw a bit of light on that as well. I've heard people say, my Mercury is in retrograde. I am going through Sadi Sati. This is just my time. Where is the line between like cosmic wisdom and just an excuse? People blame their choices, people blame their life on these time periods defined by astrology, and it's almost like they're in a prison and they can't help themselves.
So Sadesati is basically 7.5 years of a period where Saturn is influencer, Shani is influencing you, okay? Now, like I said, Shani is about grounding you. It's about bringing you back to a bit of reality. So it does throw around a few challenges. Now, if you've not done any work in your life, then that challenge is going to be a little bit harder. If you're someone that's actually been putting in the work consistently, you'll realize that Sadesati is come and gone.
You don't even realize.
You don't even get to know. Like I've come across people who've actually done so well during their Sadesati because they've really worked on themselves through their entire life. I'm not saying that you'll have no form of pain
difficulties, yeah.
or difficulty or challenges. Sometimes you feel like, okay, listen, I've been working really hard and it's really not getting me anywhere, because sometimes it's just delayed gratification as well. And that's very normal. Like Shani, for example, you're somebody that is like a Aquarius sun sign, for example. So that's the sign that Shani rules over. They're very patient. There's a lot of perseverance. You're not like you can survive without a blanket, for example. It's like you don't want everything immediately. Versus the generation of today has no perseverance.
Yeah.
Like I have more clients in their 20s who want to get to 1 billion in 2 years.
Yeah.
Literally.
Then 20 years, which is meant to be.
Yeah. So now they have an extreme hate for Shani because they're like, dude, I don't have that kind of time. I'm like, things are going to still take time. You have to put in the work. You want to build something which is, which has meaning, which has purpose. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
With every newer generation, there's more and more hate for Shani for the reason that we have lesser and lesser patience. We don't want to put in the work. We want everything to be done immediately. So actually, there's nothing wrong with Sadesati. It's just we're getting less patient. We don't want to work hard. We feel like we're always comparing our lives to other people who are successful when they're a bit younger. And that's why they're so much hated. Otherwise, really, it's just a term that, like you said, is like you're blaming external circumstances because you don't want to put in the work.
Yeah, it's easy to be the victim.
Yeah, it's easier. And it's very easy, Ashna. In today's time and age, we want to escape.
Yeah.
We don't want to work on anything. Like the generation above us was very willing to they didn't even think that success till the age of 40,
50 was possible.
Yeah. For them, their entire retirement and thinking about like going on holidays and having luxury and all of that was post 50.
Yeah. It was considered after my kids are grown up, I'm sure I'll reach a place where I'm comfortable.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So they were conditioned to knowing and realizing, look, things take time. And everything took time.
But Instagram's ruined it, no? With the 20 million posts of people showing how they became rich at 21 and 19. Everybody's thinking, I'm doing it wrong. Yeah. I'm waiting to be 40. I need to do it tomorrow. So I think it's also like the world that is happening, the false narrative that's being built around the that one person in a million who's made it big at 21. And I'm sure that happened even centuries ago. But it was not celebrated as the only format of success. But today it's become the only format of success. You've taken 10 years to do this. Oh my God, that person did it in one day. So you are really lagging behind. That's become the narrative.
So in the world of astrology, as a fun fact, social media is Rahu. Okay? Literally. We're living in the yuga which is called Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is literally where we have no patience. It's like if there was a yuga which was defined by Rahu, I mean, if it needed like a planet to define it, it would be Rahu. Rahu is the illusion, right? Like we spoke about earlier. It is the planet that brings anxiety, stress, overthinking, so on and so forth. Now, what is the thing today that brings us the most anxiety, stress, and we cannot touch and feel? The digital world. The net worth of someone today as compared to what wealth meant 20, 30 years ago was like gold,
Yeah.
treasure, actually something you could touch,
Assets.
something asset, right? That is Shani. That is when you worked hard for it, you built something, and now you've created that value. What is Rahu? Rahu literally has nothing to give you. What it gives you is, it'll give you fame. One of your reels has gone viral, now the world knows you. Wow.
Illusion of actually having an asset.
Yeah. So you have nothing, and that's where all of your mental health issues also come from. Because now from the outside, everything looks like this, and the inside there's that void where you're just actually not built anything. There's no foundation. So you build this entire like mirage, or it's like how you have a building, and the shadow is like 10 times bigger. So inside you still look like that only. Now you feel like this still very little, but the illusion is so big, and that's where all of your issues really come from. So even people who are like super famous on Instagram will be going through anxiety, stress, overthinking. In fact, one of the biggest another antidote for Rahu is go off social media. You're triggering yourself even more, getting sucked into that world. It is addictive, right? Social media is addictive.
Yeah.
It is everything that Rahu says is what social media or the digital world means. Cryptocurrency, literally billionaires overnight.
And then poppers overnight.
And poppers overnight. What do we hold? What is it what is your asset? Nothing. Nobody knows what one's asset is in cryptocurrency.
It's illusion. It's an illusion.
It's an illusion. What is somebody's net worth or valuation today? One day it's up, the other day it's down.
Yeah.
Like if you remove the internet today, how much treasure is really going to be? How rich will a person be if you remove the internet?
Only based on actually what they have physically.
Even if you go to a bank today, the bank cannot tell you how much money you have if the internet is down.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't check how much money you have unless you have internet, because everything is literally an illusion. And that is Rahu.
So the 4th house in Jyotish is, I read this before coming here, is the house of the mother, the home, the emotional foundation.
Yeah.
The 10th house is the father, the world, the legacy. And these are charts and planets that are assigned to different buckets in our life. I read this and I feel like people go and ask about this, and they kind of like see their life through that lens of this house and that house, and focus on, it tells you about how you feel for them as a child or how you don't feel for them. Can you explain this? Because I feel like we discussed right at the beginning, your relationship with your parents is the first relationship in your life. It's the most important. It's the foundation of who you are. The amount of love, attention, wisdom you receive is what you put out in your first 20 years, because you have no other teacher in your life at that time. Like that's your first DNA imprint, and that's your first conditioning and environment. So can you explain this a little bit to me?
So astrology has 12 houses, right? 4th house is also the house of moksha. And now the reason it's the house of moksha is because unless you have a stable ground, you can't even go and seek liberation, right? It's like your first foundation of survival needs to be taken care of. Now, it is a very important house, but honestly, from what I've learned, every house is important.
It has to be. That's why they're 12.
They're 12. Your entire life is divided into these 12 houses. And obviously, mother love, how emotionally rooted you are, how grounded you are, how much comfort you've got through the course of growing up earlier, so on and so forth. You can see from there. But sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it's not. But it really, again, comes down to the same thing, which is like, now either you can stay in that 4th house is not good and hate your family, or understand that they were your biggest teachers, because your biggest lessons will come through the closest relationships in your life. There is no way, if your little world, imagine if your relationship with your parents, your partner, your child, your in-laws, everything is perfect. The external world, now somebody likes you, doesn't like you, is still a lot more manageable. So you're not really going to be able to evolve.
Because you won't seek validation from them.
Correct. So what comes as a real challenge is one of these closest relationships in your life
won't work for you, yeah.
Will be, whether they work for you or not, they will challenge you for
That's
sure.
what I mean. They weren't working for you, they're challenging you. You're going to work on why it's not working for you, and then you'll start working on yourself, or you live in victim mindset, one or the other.
Correct. So there is going to be at least one relationship amongst that. So you said 10th house, but actually 9th house is the house of father, legacy, inheritance. 10th house is more career and that space. Inheritance is actually 8th house, legacy is 9th house. Now, there's some people who have amazing 9th house, some people who have amazing 4th house, but then they could have really bad health, for example, or they could have something else that's not working out for you, because all 12 houses, there is no permutation and combination in astrology that is going to give you a perfect life.
chart.
Like, for example, everyone knows Lord Ram. Lord Ram had the most amazing looking birth chart, and yet his life was pretty hard.
Yeah, he had exile, lost his wife,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he like
lost his money,
not-
wealth, everything.
that's
yeah.
not the kind of life you would expect, like an avatar of literally God himself to kind of go through, right? So if Lord Ram can come in on earth and have a life like that with a perfect chart, then I mean we're just mere humans. Like, so I mean that should explain someone enough that you have still you can't rely completely on a birth chart and like give all of your power to just what a Jyotish tells you or
I
what
think
Jyotishi tells you.
That's the perfect perspective to end this conversation on. That if Lord Ram could have the perfect birth chart and live that difficult a life,
Yeah,
then who are we to question ours?
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you don't learn your lessons, then stop blaming planets. Like, I'm so tired of people blaming planets, because the first thing that anything goes wrong with their life is, you know, my Saturn's not good right now, or my Mercury is not good. So just stop doing that, you know, and just see how are you responding differently.
So before we end the conversation, my last question to you would be, you've dedicated your life to a system that says we all are in some way living out something much larger than ourselves, right? And that our pain has geometry, our relationships have history across lifetimes, and our healing is cosmic design. So after all of that, what is the most human thing about you?
I think what astrology, the biggest gift it's given me is that the boundaries dissolve, right? You stop looking at people from all of these different filters and layers. You see the human in everyone. It's like now you don't look at someone as like rich, poor, from a certain society, from a certain religion, from a certain culture, because everyone's actually just here living out their own journeys. And you just, I feel like it's brought about so much more humility in me to be able to see that human in people.
Yeah, I think acceptance is the best form. Accepting everyone for who they are, what they're living out. And I also think that's the most peaceful way to live.
Yeah, like the minute you remove this sense of superiority, inferiority, and you just look at a human for being a human and not as like a certain label. Because if you see, most people, their entire identity is a label, you know.
Yeah.
So I think for me, astrology just helped me dissolve those boundaries. You just look at a person for who they are and that's it.
Thank you so much, Harshna. It was such a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for coming
Thank
here
you.
today.
Thank you for having me.